Welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm Allie McNair, a guest host this week. Have you heard of something called Roadmap 2020? Well, it's an initiative taking place in Sea Pines, and those working on it say, hey, it could impact all of us on Hilton Head Island. And here to tell us more about Roadmap 2020 is Kelley, who is the Executive Vice President of the CSA Community Services Associates. Did I get that right?
You got that right.
Thank you so much for coming in. Well, tell us about this. What is Roadmap 2020?
Roadmap 2020 is a revitalization initiative for Sea Pines. What we're trying to do is position ourselves so that we're successful or even more successful in the next 50 years, as we have been in the past.
And what kinds of things, when you say we need to position ourselves, is it visual? Is it the look of Sea Pines? Is it the common areas? How does it work?
It's all of that. It's everything. We start at the front gate and we're going to work our way through the whole community. All 78 miles of roads, all the thousands of signs, the bike trails, the ponds, the way we manage our waterways, the way we manage traffic, everything. We're looking at everything.
And the reason you want to rework or work on Roadmap 2020 is why? Why the need, I guess?
Well, as with any older community and with municipalities, as you age, sometimes you get away from that original vision. The reason that the developer, or the reasons that made you successful in the early years. So what we tried to do was get back to our roots, for lack of a better term.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
sure.
so when you look back at, say, a Charles Frazier and what the goal was or what he was looking at, how do you connect that with today? What would be some of those elements?
Well, again, environmental stewardship, being in, Charles' vision was a community that was in harmony with its natural environment. So when we talk about that, you talk about the color schemes that you have, the size of your architecture, the shape of it, and quite frankly, as we look through this, some of the issues and comments we got from owners was we've gotten away from that. So what we're trying to do is get back to that. And then also take into account the market that we're trying to sell to in the future. Who are the next generation of property owners within Sea Pines?
Who will they be? Or who are they?
Well, I mean, they're a different population. They don't have the same wants and desires in a lot of respects as the folks that we marketed to or that were marketed to early on. Private club membership is a big thing in the early years. It's not so much now. Folks, outdoor activities are much more desirable. Again, the stewardship on the environmental side. What are you doing for recycling? Something as simple as that. To how are you managing your water? What are your landscaping plans look like? All those things. So that's what we're trying to do.
It really sounds similar to me to the concerns or the areas that Hilton Head Island is looking at. I see a lot of parallels there.
Absolutely. I think we're right in line with the report that came out of the mayor's task force, the recent task force that was done. And what we're trying to do is kind of lead the way. So that's where we talk about hopefully our initiatives and the actions that we take and the priorities that we set will be a catalyst for the other communities on Hilton and the town itself.
What about input from owners? Because that's really where the what is it, road meets the rubber or rubber meets the road or whatever. I mean, that's got to be extremely important.
Well, it's the only way we're going to get anything ultimately accomplished. And the challenge for us is that 65% of our owners, property owners, don't live in Sea Pines. So we've had to communicate, like we're doing here today, in every manner available so that we get them involved, engaged, and get their support.
Because the last thing you want to do is move forward and then hear in the aftermath, why did you do this, why did you do that, rather than getting everyone informed at the beginning and getting their input.
Well, and that's absolutely right. And we anticipate that some of the changes that we're going to want to make or the priorities that come out are going to require covenant revisions.
Ooh, okay.
So we're going to have their support to make that happen. Plus, changes always cost money.
Yes.
And again, we're going to have their support in order to financially make this happen.
Well, I'm curious, as Executive Vice President, we were chatting before and you said you're the fellow, along with those you work with, that gets the input from owners. Do you see that you're getting more input? I mean, I guess it might be obvious, but from people that live there year-round right now than you are from the absentee owners?
Well, we were initially,
Okay.
absolutely. And we had our first community open workshop in January, and we had over 200 plus people show up. We actually had to turn them away because we didn't have a big enough room for them. But what we've seen now in the last, I'll say, 3 or 4 weeks is a lot of comments coming from those non-resident owners. I mean, we've been communicating through the website, through emails, through the newsletter, through TV. You know, we're trying every medium possible.
Can you give us any kind of glimpse at all as to what Roadmap 2020 looks like yet, or is it still in progress so you can't like unveil anything yet?
No, I don't have anything to unveil yet. But
Will you come back and let us know? When
Oh,
you do?
I would love to,
Okay.
absolutely, yes. We're going to actually have our next meeting is this Thursday with what we're calling it is our partnership, Sea Pines Partnership. And that partnership was initially just made up of all the POA presidents within the community. And it was an attempt by us to make sure that we had every area in Sea Pines basically represented. Because
It's a good idea.
not all the areas look the same.
They certainly
They
don't.
don't have the same, you know, wants and desires, so we wanted everybody at the table.
I mean, I could live on a lagoon, so I'm going to be concerned, how do we maintain those? What do we do around the lagoons? Or I could live looking out at the beach and I have totally different concerns, or I could be in a wooded area. So you're right. I mean, very different priorities for homeowners.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And we wanted to keep that. Part of the roadmap's guidance to DesignWorks, the firm that's doing it, was to ensure that those different communities kept their identity. And somehow maybe we take actions that actually bring that more to light.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that folks understand that the wide range of different areas that are available within our community.
And you're looking at, and we may have said this already, but forgive me if I'm repeating, at the 1,200, is it acres of common area that it will be like under the auspices of this Roadmap 2020?
We are looking at all the open space acreages,
Okay.
which is that 1,200 acres. Now,
But also signage, I mean,
Oh.
all of that, mailboxes.
mailboxes,
yeah,
the color
lighting,
scheme,
lighting.
lighting.
Which, boy, well, you know, if you've been in Sea Pines at night, you have to drive very carefully.
Well, and that was part of the original
Sure.
scheme, was you know, just a black sky community. In
Right,
the evenings, you
right.
got to see the stars. You got
I'm
to
not
see those
complaining,
stars.
don't get me
No,
wrong.
no, no, I understand. that.
I don't mind it.
But now we have different issues.
Right.
You know, you have the turtle season, so
Right,
the
sure.
beachfront properties.
No
you know,
lights on at night,
No
gang.
lights on at night.
Right.
So those are all things that we're trying to address.
Well, that sounds interesting. What do you think, for you, is the biggest challenge with this initiative?
The biggest challenge is communicating and getting everybody engaged. That's the biggest challenge.
Sounds like you're getting there, though.
We're trying. We're making every effort that we can possibly think of to get the word out.
So what do you do when you get people with their input and it's so dissonant? In other words, somebody says A will work and the other person says no, Z will. How do you decide which direction you're going to go in?
Well, again, it's a democracy, so we try to find that middle ground. Somewhere in the middle lies the truth. We're not going to ever be able to meet every thousands of owners' desires or wants. So we're going to try and just position ourselves so the vast majority are going to be happy with the end result.
Now, were you involved with the whole Lawton Stables renovation, or was that a whole separate issue from CSA? And because I was just going to make the point, here's an example of Sea Pines updating, or the perception of Sea Pines when you drive down now or you go to Lawton Stables, it's like night and day from a few years ago to me. So I don't know, were you involved with that, or was that a private entity that did all that renovation work at
Well,
Lawton Stables?
the renovation at the stables was done by the business owner
Okay.
who leases that property from the resort.
Okay.
But CSA and our architectural review board, of
Right.
course, approved all those plans. But that's exactly the type of revitalization, upgrades that we're looking for. And remember, in Sea Pines, we not only have private community owners, we have
True.
commercial.
True.
And the same challenges that the town is facing is how do we incentivize the commercial owners and some of these townhomes and condominium complexes to take action like this, to revitalize those areas. So we've got to, at some point, figure out how can we as a community association incentivize that type of action?
Well, Carrie, Kelley, this has been interesting. Hopefully you'll come back and update us on your progress.
I'd love to. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming in to talk of the town. Now, when we come back, we're going to learn about endangered arts, and we're going to be speaking with Julie Rogers. Stay right there.